So positive law doesn't apply to the people by their own mouth because they don't know it's a caste system. It's a class and caste system.
Status.
And so this is why you must understand law and history. And this is the other deal. And so if a person belongs to an organization that doesn't deal with law, they don't know that they're actually cheating the people because they are trained to think that these are separate disciplines. They're not separate disciplines. They go together. Law and history goes together like your left leg and your right leg. And if one is missing, you're limping, i.e. you're handicapped. And so our people look at these things as if they're opinions. You know, this group believes this, or this group believes that. And you know that's the mentality. Now, to get past that emotionalism with them and to be respectful with them in a conversation, to get them to a point of reasoning so that you can give them some information, they usually get defensive. Oh, my leader guy didn't say this. And they start doing that, and you Moors like a third-party perspective. And you can take a child to a dictionary and show them their Moors. I mean, so what do you do with that? Meanwhile, the civilized world is not forgiving with that.
A plausible denial, something like that.
Plausible deniability.
Yes, but in law, we're not forgiving. And this is the problem with us collectively as a people. The people are not aware of that because the teachers haven't explained that to them. They're just arguing black and white and green and all that kind of crap and talking opinion without law. You can't talk opinion without law.
Right.
You know what I mean? And so we have developed this idea that we can be who we want to be. And if tomorrow we decide we want to be light-skinned, wall people, we can be that because it's what do they call it, ebonics, and we can just make words be. And in law, a person like that is just simply dismissed. Do you understand what I'm saying? And they're classified as dead in the eyes of the law, which is called civil liter mortuus. Now, civil rights leaders know that's a legal classification. But they won't tell them that because they won't tell them that the Civil Rights Act was struck down in 1883 as unconstitutional, and that they've been having them marching up and down the street on a false cause.
Doing nothing.
Because they got a lot of black leader guys who've got all this respect. And this is the problem we have. And so then when you come to them and trying to talk facts, they want to talk who their leader guys is and who's the best leader and who dresses the nicest. And all this kind of crap. This is where we are.
What's the opposite of dead in the eyes of the law?
Civil liter mortuus means dead in the eyes of the law. The opposite of that is in full life, which is the opposite.
Exquisite merchant.
Now, in full life. And so that means you are neither physically dead nor civil liter mortuus. Now, this is the key. Persons who are classified under civil liter mortuus are operated on or dealt with what is called feudal law. A person in their proper person has a right to allodial principles of constitution protections, and it's a legal classification. Our people aren't aware of that because they're busy arguing whether they believe they're black. In other words, in law, they're not going to sit there and debate with grown people that's got the mentality of children. They just classify them as minorities, keep them accordingly, and when they get out of hand, charge them with contempt and just fill the jails with us.
Judgment before judgment?
Yes. And you know our people do not know the seriousness of status and identity. Now, and what I'm saying to you, most of the people that are coming into the order, particularly at Grace Hill, something like that, don't have that background. They're looking at the documents, they start throwing them out, and as soon as the judge, who's a Mason, comes at them from another angle, means they don't come to you from the door of the angle. They'll come from another angle to see if you are clandestine. Meaning, are you real to what you presented to them? Because you're putting a demand on them, and it's an obligation that already exists with them. And if you're not qualified to the call, they're not qualified to acknowledge. And at the same time, they already got their inter caetera divina policy to divide up your empire, since you all want to be black. And the majority of y'all insisting on being who you're not. So that gives them legal cause to maintain the wardship status. And this is what the Moors are trying to get across to the people at large.
Can you run through the wardship status real quick for the people?
This is wardship status. Just like you see the towns and the cities, everything, they're broken up into wards, that came from Christian doctrine. All right? The concept that our people have with the diaspora, that we were brought here, is a fraud. The great Masonic secret is that this is our land, this is Northwest Africa. You only left Africa in the mind, meaning this is what they did. They would take us from the northeast and send us to the southwest. People from the southwest send them to the northeast. If you could get our people to get out of the emotionalism of follow the leader type mentality and just deal with knowledge and historical facts and world history. And this is the other problem is, Asiatics have been trained when we go into our culture and history to use tunnel vision and go directly to Kemet and don't move. And when you're looking at African history and you don't study the world, you're not studying African history. When you look at African history or talk about Kemet and then ignore Europeans as if they're not a part of it, you're denying your own history.
I have a question that I want to pose to the Kemetologists.
Yes.
Nobody gets into Greco-Roman period of Kemet. I want to know what was going on with the Greco-Romans and what was the bloodline that came out of that. You understand? Like they were there.
Yes.
When you go to all the museums, you see all of their artifacts.
Yes.
They were building. They were doing something in Kemet.
Yes.
My thing is, what came out of that? Like, what was the race that left Kemet with all of that knowledge?
See, this is when you study world history.
Yes.
All of world history. When you study scholars, and it's interesting how scholars keep avoiding this. Trying to defend that black thing, because whether you go with Europe or Asia, all of them will tell you, whether it's the Renaissance or any other development, it is the Moors who brought it to them. Then the scholars will turn around and act like they don't know nothing about the Moors. Or debating that our people aren't Moors.
Plausible
when
deniability.
all of the history indicates that's who they are. Now, that's the last legal name that our people fell in. And you know and I know that our people over millennia have been called many names. Some by themselves, which are legitimate, and some which are brands by Europeans, which are illegitimate.
Labels.
A scholar's job is to separate the wheat from the chaff, which means what are the legitimate names that we called ourselves by our forefathers, and what are the brands that was referred to us by European slaveholders and or sociologists or engineers, social engineers, anthropologists. So you cannot study the world history or the history of Africa without acknowledging the Pontifex and Intercatera Divina, because that is the big blow that the Europeans used to change the course of world history. It's not that wars and things did not occur that began to change history, like the Punic Wars. You come up from the Punic Wars to the Christian Crusades, to the Battle of Tours near Poitiers, France, Charles Martel, Charlemagne, the whole crew, on up to Granada, on up to Lake Michigan, with Chief Justice Ben Bey, who they call Ben Banneker. Teaching European masonry, bringing them into government.
Hannibal?
Yes, Hannibal, Barker Bay, it's all there. But the interesting thing is, because our people, many of the so-called scholars have adopted the Middle English word black as an identity, which was used as a brand. Then they take that brand, which is only 500 years old, and then they take it and then put it retroactive in Kemetan history and start saying that everything means black. Oh, that means black. Oh, Kemet, oh, that means black. Oh, Moor, oh, that means black. Oh, Ethiopia, oh, that means black. Oh, Abyssinia, oh, that means black. The Nile, oh, that means black. Come on.
And black is the name of an animal.
The real, etymologically, it's a fraud. And it's not to condemn them, it's still a fraud. It's just because they won't take the time to really study. They're trying to really defend a brand as an identity, which is what that intent is. And though they may mean well, not really knowing linguistics, they don't know that they're actually branding them people or casting them in a class system because they don't know it's a class system. They think it's, they'll tell the children, let's pull down this map.